Alright guys, today we're going to talk about the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt, Cleopatra. She grew up learning the Greek language from her tutor, Philostratos, and then went on to study other things at the Library of Alexandria. Her family is known as the Ptolemaic dynasty, who were Macedonian Greeks that ruled Egypt after the death of Alexander the Great. Now, even though the people before her didn't care to adopt the Egyptian language, Cleopatra had the mentality of wanting to expand and grow beyond her predecessors. By the time she hit adulthood, she had already learned multiple languages, including Egyptian. So she's 18 years old and her father has now passed away, which means Cleopatra and her 10-year-old brother Ptolemy are now the new joint rulers to the throne. And they were married. You heard me right. Due to the Egyptian god Osiris marrying his sister to keep the bloodline pure, it later became tradition for the Ptolemies to do the same thing. They would marry and even inbreed with each other just to keep the power all to themselves. Are we really going down this road right now? The first years were terrible. Economic crisis, famine, floods, political conflict, not to mention a huge debt to the Roman Republic that was left behind by her father. Good looking out, Pops. Eventually, she started to reject her brother's position and claimed Egypt as a sole ruler. So, Pothinus, who was Ptolemy's advisor, said, "You can't just let her do you like this. You gotta boss up and take that throne for yourself." Ptolemy said, "You know what? You right." And with Ptolemy being so young, Pothinus could then manipulate the kingdom using his power. So a war broke out between the two, and with her defeat, Cleopatra ended up fleeing to Syria. But she's not out the game just yet. While she's in Syria, she spent time building up a squad and came back with an army to go against her brother. Here's where it gets interesting. At the same time, Julius Caesar was having a civil war with Pompey the Great, and Pompey himself just so happened to be in Egypt. So once again, Pothinus intervenes. He said, maybe if I execute Pompey, it will bring Egypt in the favor of Julius. Considering the current state of Egypt and how they're already in debt to Rome, they could really use it. So he went through with this idea, and Ptolemy issued out the order. But it backfired. Caesar said even though him and Pompey were in this dispute, that was just between him and Pompey. Nobody asked you to stick your hands in our business. Now him and Ptolemy have a problem. This is where Cleopatra comes in. Since Julius and her brother are now beefing, she decides to take advantage of the situation by charming Caesar while he's angry. She offers him a proposition. On one side you have the debt to Rome, and on the other side, she can make use of Caesar's men to get her position back. They come to an agreement and form a relationship from that point forward. And how did they come to this agreement? She seduced him, of course. Caesar then defeated Ptolemy's army in the Battle of the Nile, and Ptolemy himself got drowned in the Nile River. Cool, Cleopatra is now joint ruler again with another one of her brothers, and she gave birth to the child that she had with Caesar. Things are going good. She was finally starting to make the region stable again. You even start to see her rep the Egyptian culture more, claiming that she's the incarnation of the deity Isis. Time passes. She has now taken a trip to Rome to go meet up with Caesar, but while she was there, Caesar ended up getting assassinated. In the meantime, she remained in Rome hoping that her son would get recognized as his heir, but Caesar's will recognize his adopted son Octavian instead. So when Cleopatra returned to Egypt, she killed her own brother by poisoning him so her son could be co-ruler in his place. You know, cause maintaining the kingdom is more important than your brother's life. After Caesar's death, she sided with his party Octavian and Mark Antony in a civil war against his assassins, Marcus Brutus and Cassius Longinus. This was known as the Battle of Philippi, and Caesar's party was victorious. Soon after, Antony requested for Cleopatra to meet up with him and asked her what was her actual role in all of this. Cause word around town was that the assassins asked her for help too. and there was a misunderstanding that she might be playing both sides of the fence. But Cleopatra said, "Oh no, I'm innocent. Look, I'll prove it to you." And in order to protect herself and her son, she offers her sister Arsinoe to be paraded, then executed. Antony then pledges to help Cleopatra out. She goes back to Egypt, and Antony follows her, leaving behind his wife and his kids in Rome. From this point, these two form a relationship, and her main objective was to make another heir. This was no accident. Cleopatra knew that in terms of power, Antony was the best person she could choose after Caesar. He also had the power to give back land that was previously taken by the Romans. After staying in Egypt, he goes on a campaign against the Parthians. She provides him with 200 ships and later had 2 of his children. Egypt was looking more and more promising under Cleopatra, and just as she planned, Antony gave her portions of land. This includes most of Phoenicia, a city in Israel, a portion of Palestine, the list goes on. After losing the campaign, Antony ditches his wife in Rome and goes off to stay with Cleopatra. Now, remember how I said Caesar's will claimed Octavian as his heir? Well, not anymore. Antony renamed Caesar's son as the true heir to Julius Caesar, casting Octavian to the side. And yes, he has the power to do that. This left Octavian furious. He told the officials that Antony was out of his mind and that he'd do anything so long as it pleased Cleopatra. The Roman Senate then disowned Antony and declared war against Cleopatra. The battle was on. She had 100,000 men and 800 ships, while Octavian had 80,000 men and 200 ships. However, his squad was professionally trained and Cleopatra's side was not so good. Her main focus, more than anything, was protecting Egypt, so the crew made their way to Greece for the Battle of Actium. That way, if Octavian tried to make a move, it would be easy for them to retaliate. Unfortunately, they still lost several fights in the process, and to top it all off, the people that were supposed to be their allies were switching sides and starting to join Octavian. This leads to the final portion of the battle, where Antony and Cleopatra decide to part ways. Antony went to go raise more forces in Cyrene, and Cleopatra went to Alexandria to pretend as if she had won the battle. However, while Antony was in Cyrene, he heard that Cleopatra took her own life, and losing the little hope he had left, he decided to take his own as well. But the rumor wasn't true. She was actually still on the run. With Antony out of the way, Octavian was on the hunt for Cleopatra to take her as a prisoner. But she said it's not about to go down like that. Instead, it's speculated that she took her own life, for real this time, using the bite from a venomous snake. Egypt was annexed into Roman territory, and although most queens of her time were married, Cleopatra stood out by ruling for 22 years on her own. That about wraps it up. If you enjoyed the video, please like it up so we can get this trending. Feel free to add information as you see fit, and let me know what you guys think about it. It's your boy Tsiah. I'm out.
901 Shelby Drive, look alive, look alive. Niggas came up on this side, now they on the other side.